Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at A Treasury of Horses, published by Dell Comics in 1955. This is a huge comic. I think it's 100 pages. I didn't know they made comics this big. You see the spine there? It's fat. And they had a bunch of these comics, A Treasury of Dogs, which I have. I'll probably do a video on that sometime in the future. But this is a hefty enough slab of comics to do one video on alone. I love this painted cover. It's unknown who did it, or it's according to the Grand Comic Database. Almost every artist in here they don't know. The first story they think is Tom Gill with question marks. So pretty much this is nobody knows who wrote and drew this for the most part. And this is just talking about every aspect of horses in history, in myth, in comic stories about horses, facts and info about horses, different breeds and stuff. I don't know why, but I love this comic. This comic is like, it's probably geared to like 7-8-year-olds. But I discovered these I think I was in my 30s, maybe even 40s. I found this one and the dogs one, A Treasury of Dogs. And I was just like, oh my God, I want 100 comics like this. These are just fun. The covers are a little harder too than normal. Sorry, not harder, but stiffer. So we have a little introduction here. And don't forget, everyone, Dell Comics are good comics. That was Dell's motto. There's something interesting about Dell Comics. I still to this day don't understand really how this worked. But when the Comics Code Authority came out in 1955, every comics company had to put the seal on or they'd get zero distribution. Dell was so powerful and their comics were so wholesome, known to be wholesome, that they just said, no, we're not going to do it. We don't need to. And they were the best-selling comic company in the business. So I don't understand why other companies didn't try. Maybe Dell just had wicked distribution. They also had their reputation as just being all, comics for kids. But still kind of weird that they did that. So we start off with this great story, The Wild Horse King. Something I learned from reading the Silver comics. The Lone Ranger's horse, Silver, has his own comics from Dell. I love comics from the animal's point of view. I mean, I guess it's like I loved White Fang when I was a kid, too, in Call of the Wild. So I guess I've always kind of liked that thing. But that's what this is. It's just the story of this golden stallion named Wildfire leading his manada. That's what you call basically your herd. But really, it's your harem. Because basically, Wildfire has a herd of, lady horses. And I guess he's the only one who gets to bone them. And they're just talking about how, he takes care of the herd. He finds food in winter with his sharp hooves. He pokes through the snow to find grass, pokes through the icy lake to find water for the herd. I really like the art in this too. So I don't know, maybe it is Tom Gill. I don't know enough of Tom Gill. But whoever it is, beautiful art. Just the way he draws these horses and these wolves. The wolves aren't drawn as good as the horses, actually. But man, this guy knew how to draw horses. So we see him fighting off a pack of wolves. I'm sorry, he's not fighting them off. One of the manada kind of wanders off and becomes prey to the wolves. Wildfire doesn't know. So when Wildfire hears the neighing of this horse, him and the herd run over to protect her. That's pretty much the only dialogue in this comic. It's neigh, aroo, and knee. So they make a circle around the wounded horse, and they fight off the wolves. Wildfire bites one on the back of the neck and whips him like 20 feet. This to me is high drama. This is exciting shit to me. We see the seasons change. And we, of course, throughout learn about wild horses. This is all the caption boxes are peppered with information about how they live, how they eat. But spring comes and it's a dangerous season because not only his natural enemies like the wolf and the panther, but he must guard his mares from the jealous Mustang outcast. Because it's a really weird society horses have. Basically, one stallion who's like the head honcho gets to fuck like, I don't know, 15 to 20 horses, which obviously leaves a lot of males who don't have their anything. They get no females. So, of course, they always want to take on the stallion, the head stallion, and, take over his herd. But even more aggressive than those outcasts are the other herd stallions. A lot of these guys will have a herd, and they'll want to expand their herd by conquering another stallion and taking his mares. So this black horse shows up, and he tries to do that. He kind of shears off some of the mares to try to chase them away, and then they'll have to join his herd. But Wildfire's onto him, and he chases them off. And then on top of that, Wildfire gets his manada. So now his herd is increased because the black stallion ran off. They talk about the birthing process. I guess horses just birth once a year, and it's kind of weird. The mare goes off to be all by herself for a day while she gives birth. I don't understand why they don't hang around to protect her. She seems very vulnerable at that point. Another great panel. I mean, so many great panels. I love the way this guy draws horses. We see him helping his herd cross a river. And then a panther attacks. And we have this great fight scene. Panther's on his back. And Wildfire is like bucking like a bronco to get him off, shake him off. And finally he does. And he just stomps him into the sand here with his sharp hooves. That panther's a goner. So that black stallion comes back. He wants revenge. And once again, he's going to try to take over. And Wildfire comes out for their final battle. They rear up on their hind legs. And then they get to it. Pretty savage. The black stallion's trying to bite his neck to get to his jugular vein. And the stallion knocks over Wildfire. He's on his back. Another very dynamic panel. Almost looks like Gil Kane could have drawn that one. I know he didn't, though. And then finally, Wildfire knocks over the black stallion. And he kicks the crap out of him with his sharp hooves. But he lets him live, and the black stallion, his spirit is broken, so he no longer presents a challenge. And he slinks away. And Wildfire does this victory neigh. He's basically just like, I'm king shit of fuck mountain, and don't you forget it. I got all the horse pussy in the forest. What a weird system. So now we have all these like cute little factoid pages. Horse sense. Just all these. Another interesting question about horses is why they don't use their one sure weapon against a rider. All a horse has to do in order to kill or dismount his rider is to lie down and roll over. But this never happens, or almost never happens. This thing about horse sense is really weird too. They claim that horses basically look up to us as a superior race, human beings. Because when the original horses, from like pre-caveman times, they were called the Eohippus. They were about the size of a dog. And this seems like hokum to me. Supposedly, they're still looking through their eyes of the Eohippus. Even though they're taller, they almost have this, I don't know, race memory in their DNA that they still see themselves as small, like they have an inferiority complex. It sounds nuts. I don't believe it. We have the story of the horse, and we see how the horse is developed, how they evolved over thousands of years, how man, learned how to domesticate them. At first, they just ate them, and then they realized, hey, we can use these guys. And how with horses, it totally revolutionized warfare, chariots, different kind of horses in different regions were bred. Stronger, heavier horses in the Northern Europe and on the Mediterranean in the East, lighter, faster horses. Talk about the knights, how the knights needed these really strong, heavy horses. So that's why they were bred. I think they're called the black horse. But then when the Crusades come around, they realize that it's better to have a faster, more nimble horse, like the Arabian steeds were. I just love this art. It was just it's like the art in a dictionary, it's just perfunctory, but good. Work horses. Horses come to the Americas, and the Native Americans learn how to ride them. The Native Americans apparently thought horses were just big dogs, and they called them great dogs for a while. And horses, of course, we couldn't have become such a big cattle producing country without horses. Polo, harness horses to carry carriages. All the different breeds we have today, they're showing. I never knew this until this comic. Ponies aren't horses. Ponies are a whole different thing. Almost like a, mule or jackass or donkey. I always thought a pony was just a baby horse. But no, apparently it's a whole different thing. And we see the zebra, which is in the family. But zebras are weird because they will not allow themselves to be trained for riding or pulling wagons. It's just not in them. Horse gear, saddles, the horse family. Here's all the different horses, their purposes. and the zebra. I like that when the zebras are attacked by a predator, they get in a circle, but head in. And then they just use their back legs and just make this like kicking line. And it just becomes this wall of hooves that the predators can't really get past. I guess they could fart at them too while they're doing it. Yeah, here's all. This was kind of interesting to read. The ass, the donkey, the burro. You know, like all these things were like, what the hell are they exactly? And of course, the mule comes. I think we passed the mule. And then in the late 1800s, they found this horse in like near Mongolia, I think, or in the Gobi Desert, and they call it the Przewalski wild horse because it's a horse that harkens back to that early primitive horse. Somehow it never evolved, and nobody ever saw him until like the late 1870s or early 1870s. Here we get another story, a proof of the breed, and it takes place at Dan Dayton's Western Horse Ranch. And his young nephew, Billy, comes to visit. And Billy's put to work, and he learns all about horses and how to take care of them. Dan Dayton has this one-star stock horse. He's retired from racing, but basically he won so much money for Dan that's how he bought the ranch. But now he's retired, but he's still very valuable. His name's Fleet Star. This horse is a stud horse, so he's all of his foals become champions. So of course everyone wants, that's a very valuable thing in this world. He's got two children, Comet and Streak. Both of them are really pretty fast, but Comet is definitely the fastest one. And they both have that same diamond on their nose like Fleet Star does. So Billy's learning all about racing and how to tell a good racehorse. So there's all like information. I mean, I hope it's factual. They could just be lying. I wouldn't know. But it's all kind of interesting how they pepper this story with lots of information. One day, this guy, Rod Brockton, he's another rancher type. He's like, hey, I want to buy like basically $25,000 worth of horses. And that's exactly how much Dan Dayton needs to keep his ranch afloat. The bank has come sniffing around, calling up his mortgage because he's doesn't have the money. He's going to lose the ranch. So Rod Brockton knows that he's over a barrel. So he picks out the horses he wants, $25,000. Dan's like, oh, this is great. It's going to save the farm. But then Rod says, oh yeah, but you got to put Fleet Star into the deal or I'm not buying anything. Trying to strong arm him into selling Fleet Star. But Dan Dayton's not going to have it. Fleet Star is like his hope diamond. It's the base of his fortune. So Billy's learning more and more. He's getting really good at taking care of horses. And he really takes an affinity to Streak. The horse that's not as good as his brother. He's not as fast. So one night, Billy sees some shenanigans going around at the stalls. Somebody conks him on the head. And when he wakes up, somebody's taking Comet. Because without the sale of those horses to Brockton, the only hope the ranch had was they were going to race Comet that week in a race. That was going to, actually the purse happened to be $25,000 as well. So that would have saved the ranch. And there was a good chance. Comet's a really good fast horse, so there's a good chance he was going to win. So all of a sudden, Comet's missing. I'm pretty sure you already know who did it. It's pretty obvious. But they pretend that they don't, I guess. So they're like, hey, our only hope is Streak. Maybe we can train Streak in the next few days to be a champion. And Billy's kind of put in charge of that. And this other trainer. There's definitely a different artist than the first comic story in here. Not as good, but still, I kind of like it. I don't know. For some reason, it reminds me of like those old English comics. Not the goofy ones like Beano and Dandy, but the serious ones. So Eddie is like the main trainer guy there. So he's showing Billy all the things to do and not to do. But Billy sees him over and over again doing the things he's not supposed to do. So the horse gets colic because Eddie watered him before racing, which is a big no-no. And then he puts on his bandages too tight, which is going to fuck up his legs. His legs are swollen. So Billy finally just says, to his uncle, he says, Uncle Dan, he's been screwing up on purpose, I think. He keeps doing this shit that he knows he's not supposed to. And Dan is like, who you working for? He's like, get the fuck out of here. You're through. I find these stories so riveting. They're so dumb, but I love them because they're about horses. So Billy stays up all night putting compresses on the Streak's legs. He's a really good kid. So they put Streak in the race the next day. And Streak wins, so the farm is saved. The horse that Brockton was riding, or his jockey was riding, he was just a brown horse. Comet was brown, but Comet had that diamond on his forehead. But Fleet Star senses something. Fleet Star's like, hey, what's going on here? And he's whinnying. And Dan gets a sudden idea. And he goes over with a wet rag, a wet sponge, and wipes at the forehead. And it's Comet. There's the diamond and everything. So Dan slugs him, and then the cops come, and he says, hey, this guy's a horse thief. So the ranch is saved, Comet is returned, and the family is all together and happy, and so are the Taylors. What a great ending. That's the best ending I've ever read. The horse and man's progress through the ages. I really like the art in this one. Once again, unknown. Here we see those, the early horses, the prehistoric horses. Where's the name again? Oh, I guess they don't. Oh, the Oedipus, and they look pretty damn tiny. They're not even as big as a big dog. They're as big as like a medium-sized dog. We see when man arises, they're like an enemy of the horse at first. And then one day, in the days of like Babylon, this tribe of men living in the mountains decided not to eat a horse and try to ride him. So just some guy had to, whatever, and the idea, and it caught on. There's a lot of retreads of that earlier factoid pages. We see how horses, help with warfare. It's all in the horse's point of view, though. It's is it second person? No, it's plural first person. Like soon we brought our masters the Kassites down from the mountains to do battle with the Babylonians. And the whole time it's kind of weird because the horse narrator is like just saying how like, yeah, we helped our great masters conquer this country, and like they're just total slaves and they love it, as if all horses are just thrilled to be doing our bidding. So with the use of horses and chariot warfare, the Hyksos took over Egypt. They became a world power just because they were masters of horses and chariots. The earliest postal services in Rome, you know, couldn't have happened without horses. Doing relays, you know, to send messages. And then, you know, Rome falls. The barbarians, Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, take it over, but once again with the help of horses. They were really good horsemen. The New World. Yeah, we're trying to get a lot of the information from that other story. How horses helped history along. We conquered the West because we had all the wagons with the horses. It's kind of sad though, like whenever they talk about Native Americans in this, like it's, the horse is like, well, I mean, it's an American 1950s point of view, but it's like, yes, and we helped the settlers go out west. And then the Native Americans would attack them. And then we helped the cavalry, you know, rescue the settlers. As if the settlers were totally blameless. Let's see, the Pony Express, Buffalo Bill. They're basically just calling out all these famous incidents in history where a horse was involved. So, and one of our kind, you know, served Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo. I guess because horses became so beloved. Like they basically were, if you were in the West, it was like your best friend. So that's when like being a horse thief was like the worst thing you could call a guy. And you could be hanged for it. And of course, technology comes, and the horse is talking about how startled all his brethren were by these crazy machines like cars and trains and even bicycles. So basically, all these horrible wars, horses were complicit in. Just kidding. But, very silly. More factoids. These are about some of the famous race horses of history. Man o' War, Dan Patch, native dancer. These guys won a lot of money for some rich guy. Roy Rogers' horse Trigger. They're talking about trick horses. Some of the shit I can't believe. They're claiming that Black Bear and Lady, these trick horses, one of them could converse in Chinese, read minds, crack jokes, and solve mathematical problems. I don't know about that. Supposedly Trigger, Roy Rogers' horse, could untie knots, walk 125 feet in his hind legs, count as far as 25, and write X on a hotel register. Horse racing. A little history of horse racing. Here we get another comic story. Queen of the Big Top. Unfortunately, we don't know who wrote or drew it. And this is another story told from the animal's point of view. This white horse here is named Queen, and Queen loves working at the circus. But he's basically just like a workhorse. He does work with the clowns in their act, but other than that, he just helps. He hauls heavy circus gear around, but he kind of has ambitions to be a show horse. And one day he sees the jumping horses, jumping over their little, whatever you call them, fences, and he breaks free and he starts jumping with them, even without a rider to lead him. And the circus grand poobah, he says, "Oh, this guy's a natural jumper." And he tells Walton, the guy who's been the horse trainer, he says, "Let's see what you can do with her. Maybe you could train her to be a, first-class jumper." And it's kind of weird. This guy just doesn't want more work. So he kind of fucks up Queenie's chance. Like, he has all these tricks he can do. Like, I'm going to lean backward in the saddle when he's about to jump so that Queenie will shy away from the fence. And he's jabbing him with his spurs, like overly jabbing. So Queenie almost gets this complex, like associating pain with trying to jump over the fence. So in these 2 pages, this guy totally psychologically destroys this horse. This horse who just had this great love of jumping over fences. He just did it out of pure joy. And just in like an hour, this guy totally makes the horse have a complex about it. Really odd. I was actually really distressed. I was as if I was reading some psychological horror story. I was like, oh my God, this is horrifying. So Queenie finally jumps over the fence out of fear. But he keeps doing things to sabotage Queenie's success. And his big first night of being a show pony, the band freaks him out. The noise from the band and the audience. And he shies away from the fence again. So he totally chokes. And that Walton guy's like, "See, I told you she's no jumper. She's just a workhorse." So Queenie's just devastated. Queenie's like, "I had my big shot and I blew it." But then one of the fancy writers, that's what they call him, I didn't make that up, a daredevil fancy writer, he takes a liking to Queenie and he starts training Queenie. And it basically undoes all the bullshit that Walton shoved into her brain just by being a loving, nice trainer. And he does all these tricks to get Queenie over her fears. And Queenie's a natural. Of course, Walton's chiding him. He's like, "Nah, she'll never be a full, show writer, show jumper." So he teaches Queenie to like music. He basically just says, "Well, next time the band plays, we're just going to sit here, Queenie, and you're going to hear the music." And Queenie actually starts to like it. She's even tapping her feet to the music. And she also, she's a pretty good trick horse. She learns how to add. She learns how to dance and prance about. And her first show, her second show, she wows the audience. She's doing great. But Walton, he's such a bastard. He really has it in for this fucking horse, this sweet little horse. He raises the bar on the fence for the last jump of the night. And luckily, the fancy rider catches it. And he confronts Walton. And they make a bet. He says, the horse show is being held tonight. If Queen wins first prize, you go. If she doesn't, I'll leave. I don't know why he just doesn't beat the shit out of him. He deserves it. So at the horse show, Queenie wins. And Walton goes off packing with his bags. And Queen's dream is realized. I'm sorry, it's just Queen. I've been calling her Queenie all this time. I thought it was Queenie. So Queen is a star of the show, and she's gonna get to be a show pony from now on. Storybook horses. This is all the random horses from myth and stories. Of course, the Pegasus from Greek mythology. This whole page is about Pegasus. And then Pegasus is talking about his brethren, like the horses that pull Apollo's flaming chariot across the sky, like the horses that the Amazons rode in the Trojan War. Oh, I'm sorry, when they fought Achilles. They talk about the Trojan horse, even though that's not a horse. Why does it look like Joe Cooper drew this panel? That's really odd. So they're talking about other pantheons now. This is the Norse gods. They had mythical horses. And then Neptune, his famous horse, who's like almost like a mer horse. He's got like a fishtail. Unicorns. We see more stories of Pegasus and his adventures with, what's his name? Bellerophon. And now we come up to the present day. And we see that artists have always been inspired by Pegasus. In the Bible, King Arthur, his round table, of course, all rode horses because they were knights. So basically every famous story with a horse in it, they name check. Don Quixote, Rocinante, Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And they bring us up to the 20th century and, you know, Black Beauty, all these popular horse books, National Velvet, The Red Pony by Steinbeck, Flicka, all that stuff. We have more info pages. The Morgan horse. Dandy was a Custer's horse. Let me see over here real quick. I never knew that a Mustang just meant wild horse. So all the horses that, when the conquistadors came over here and they brought them to the New World, some of them just skipped off and, you know, turned into these wild horse herds. And that's what a Mustang is. I thought a Mustang was a particular breed of horse. The largest and heaviest horse in the world, 2,100 pounds. This was in every Dell comic. A pledge to parents. The Dell Code eliminates entirely, rather than regulates, objectionable material. I thought there was some objectionable thing in this comic, to be honest, but I'm not a parent. The Care of Horses. This thing has so much fucking information packed into it. Relationships in the horse family, the family tree, if you will, the Eohippus down here, then the hairy wild horses of the caveman times, and all the way up through the different breeds. So there you have it. I don't know how many people would enjoy this comic. I don't know why I fucking love these comics. Maybe I'll do a Treasury of Dogs sooner than later. But I just wish I had hundreds of these, of just every topic. I think there were a bunch. Dell had a lot of, weird little one-shots like this. But it's, I just love this stuff. I'm definitely I want to show off to you guys the Hi-Yo Silver comic, because those are great, all told from the horse's point of view, also from Dell. I've got like a handful of those. I don't have all of them, but I'll just still definitely want to make videos about them soon. So there you have it, Treasury of Horses. I really hope you liked it. I'm a little doubtful of that, but I love it. And I hope you return here to the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.